Did we just kill someone? I asked him softly. The upper half of his face was covered with fabric. I'd yet to see his full face. It was fairly off-putting, still having so much I didn't know about the creature I was stuck with. Pausing to think through his words, he finally spoke again. Human speech was a strange sight coming from an animalistic mouth. We only placed a curse on that man. The curse awakens when certain conditions are met. If he attempts to do the same action, he shall faint. If he is... Yet again he paused, but this time I felt a wave of embarrassment from him. He cleared his throat before continuing. If he's in an intimate situation with another, he must receive consent to proceed. Without that, or any attempts in force, shall end in extreme pain in a very important area on his person. I felt a bit relieved that I wasn't a murderer yet. It also appeared that Vex was rather shy when it came to discussing intimate matters. It gave him an air of endearment despite his monstrous form. The curse also served another purpose. It was a test to see if Manifesto would appear. I nodded, understanding what he meant. Manifesto took humans as a sacrifice in exchange to make sure the voyage went smoothly. A random creature coming on board and cursing one of its passengers was something he should stop at any cost, even if the passenger deserved it, because Manifesto didn't stop us. Something might be wrong with the ship demon. Do you think he's even on board the ship? I asked, voicing my theory he may have taken the two couples and bailed for some unknown reason. He is. I can sense him while you cannot. It is very strange. His movements are sporadic. That is why we were not able to catch up with him while searching the ship. I have never seen this sort of movement from him before. I doubt he has even the ability to move between places so quickly.
What does he even look like? Do you think we've seen a glance of him without realizing? I asked, suddenly becoming aware that only Fex knew Manifesto's appearance. Neither him or Silverman had given me any sort of description yet. Another long pause. I cannot tell you any of his defining features without making it sound like an insult. What the hell could that mean? Was Manifesto so ugly that there was no redeeming features? What could be so terrible a monster like Fex didn't think was attractive? He only wears black. Fex added in quickly, thinking of the only thing he could mention. Putting aside our troubles for a second, I was wondering something. Manifesto is a demon, right? As in a demon from hell? Does that mean that there is some weird afterlife out there? I know there were way more pressing matters, but I just couldn't help myself from asking. Manifesto is not a demon in the biblical sense. It was just a label humans gave him. I am not at liberty to comment about the topic of the afterlife. I cannot even confirm or deny any religions. Fex was very firm in his answer. He was a solid wall of refusal. There were just some answers I would not get out of him, no matter how hard I tried. At least it was worth a shot. Giving up on that topic, I moved back to the main one. I'm sorry I got freaked out earlier. I know I should be this kick-ass and take names sort of guy. I did take the job after all. I just couldn't forgive myself if I made a mistake and got someone killed, I explained. I still felt pretty terrible for having the reaction to run off to hide somewhere. I've known from the start what my job was going to be. At some point, I was going to need to kill someone, or Fex is going to have to do it using my body. I owed him my life, and saving other creatures that suffered in the same way Fex had was the least I could do. I just wasn't ready for something as huge as murder. Mason, you are now in a world of supernatural creatures. I am, by far, one of the better ones to come across. The monsters we shall encounter eat humans. I have eaten some on occasion. You shall meet creatures that logic is so beyond your own. You'll need to make very tough decisions to survive. You may be harder to kill, however, death is still possible. If our luck is bad, we may come across things that are so far removed from this world, neither of us may stay sane after. If you're going to change after all of these experiences, with all that being said, I am glad you are the person I am with through all of it. I believe you are perfectly fine the way you currently are and wish, if possible, you would not change. That was the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, even if it came from a monster while I sat on a men's bathroom floor. I felt a little happy at first, then a little embarrassed because I didn't know how to take any kind of positive comments. How come you haven't talked to me before this? I was hoping that it would be easier on you. I'm not human and have been shoved into your body. That is enough to deal with on top of that creature trying to speak with you. I also hoped I would fade away in time if I stopped speaking. Fex answered honestly. Seriously, this monster was more considerate than nearly every person I have ever known. Out of all the creatures out there, I really hit the jackpot getting him. With a lot more things cleared up, we needed to think of a real plan. It would be easier now I could communicate with Fex with words instead of vague feelings. I need you to stick around. I clearly can't do any of this by myself. I was thinking of us checking out the main deck to start with. Maybe we'll find something. He nodded in agreement with me. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was a start. He was starting to fade away, to go back into wherever he went, when another question came to mind. Have you been eating all the leftovers? He didn't answer. Instead, he just left me in silence like the monster he was. It was late in the night, so the hallway was mostly empty. People either inside their rooms or inside the bars. I didn't come across anyone often, but when I did, they creeped me out. They walked past me silently. At first I didn't notice anything. Then I became aware of small details. I hadn't heard them walking towards me. I just saw someone turn the corner. They walked past, just giving me a side eye as if I didn't notice. They were so freaky, I asked Fex to see if he could tell if they were all human. He confirmed that they were and didn't see anything off about it, but I did. It was as if we were being watched the entire way to the deck. It took a while and many maps later before I found it. It was empty, not a single person was out at this time. The weather was nice compared to the hellish winter I came from. There was some wind, but the breeze helped to cool the humid night. I walked around trying to sniff out anything. If there were some hints remaining, Fex would be able to sense it. Most of the deck was taken up by a pool on the ocean. I lived my life just getting by. Being around wealth of any kind kept shocking me. Even the quality of life, people living comfortably, was something I'd aim for, but never thought I would achieve. Now I was on a massive ship with bars, restaurants, and gift shops. I didn't check yet, but I was certain there would be some spas on this cruise ship as well. Manifesto picked a good ship to live on. Maybe after this job, if we didn't have to kill him, we might stay for a few days. Never been on a ship this size before. Might as well enjoy it a little. A small sound alerted my attention, and I looked behind me. The light was good, so I could see clearly. From the edge of the pool closest to me was a black shape emerging from the water. Fex knew who it was the moment we saw the figure. The elusive ship demon finally came to greet us. Fex was right about him wearing only black. When he stood to his full height, I fully understood why my monster partner was against trying to describe him. Manifesto was short, downright child-sized. His long black hair trailed behind him and looking longer than his body. 3 long horns of different heights poked from his head, giving him more height and almost in a crown shape. A black veil covered his face, making it impossible to see what he looked like. Sleeves that nearly touched the ground hid his hands.
His small feet poked out from his soaking wet piles of black fabric his small body was wrapped in. His feet looked exactly like bird claws. He's just a little guy, isn't he? I asked Fex inside my head. Switch with me. Something isn't... Fex didn't finish speaking. He took over my body the moment before Manifesto jumped forward so fast I didn't even see him move. Fex put both arms crossed out in front, protecting our head from a kick powerful enough to shatter both arms. Without Fex's reaction speed, we would be dead. He blocked out all of the feelings of pain from me. I don't think there are words to describe the feeling of bones breaking without feeling the pain at the same time. The kick launched us backwards and off of the boat. I couldn't do a damn thing as we fell hundreds of feet into the dark, cold waters. When Manifesto kicked us, he also did something that froze our body in the position on impact. Fex didn't respond when I screamed at him, trying to get him to snap us out of it. We needed to get our body moving. I felt faintly the impact of us falling into the ocean. I couldn't see anything or do anything. No air was in our lungs, and the water was far too cold than it had any right to be. Moments after dropping inside the abyss of the sea, my mind was already spiraling. We were hard to kill, but we could still die. This body wasn't made to hold up against everything. I panicked in the darkness, certain we would drown, or maybe we would sink until the pressure of the sea crushed us. Still, we sank deeper and deeper. I only hoped the ship had engines with those massive propellers to catch our body and put us out of our misery before the sea took our lives. With the final scream, I heard Fex say my name. I calmed down as I could feel our body moving. He struggled with everything we had to get back to the surface. Sputtering and fighting against the current of the sea, he got some air before we were forced back down. Our arms healed, but that didn't mean we'd get out of this alive. The ship was causing such waves and a powerful current that we couldn't get out of. Aside from getting seasick, Fex was not a strong swimmer. I wasn't the best one either. I'd only seen him use magic by drawing his circles first. There was nothing to draw on, and our chalk would be ruined by the water even if he thought of something. This is going to hurt, he warned me, because he was speaking directly to me inside my mind. He could communicate while being forced underwater. I tried to get mentally prepared for the pain. We had just been about to drown, so anything would be better than that. 1 second, our body was struggling to stay afloat, and the other, we were in the middle of a familiar hallway, soaking wet and coughing up seawater. I looked around to see the red carpet and gold trimmings, and I hurt. My hands curled, frozen in pain. Every nerve felt like I was on fire, and gagging up water just made it all worse. Whatever Fex did saved us, but it also hurt like a bitch. You must walk. If you do not, your body shall freeze up. Flex your fingers. I tried doing what the voice inside my head told me, but it was agony. With some more encouragement, I was slowly able to move my fingers. Each time I opened and closed my hands, the pain lessened. Getting up, my leg muscles cramped up in protest. I changed my mind. Drowning would be better. What did you do? I asked, taking a painful step forward. I dipped into my power to use a spell. I aimed for dry land, preferably the penthouse. I do not know why we returned to the ship. He explained, even though it did not give an answer as to why I was in so much pain. Why does this suck so much? I struggled for every small step forward. Despite the fact that you fused your body with mine, you are still essentially human. Humans are not compatible with magic. Their bodies get overloaded very easily. You may have access to my powers, but you cannot use them until your body adjusts. The overload is blocking me out from taking over for a few minutes. Please endure it until then. I was learning all sorts of things then from Fex. I really should have made him speak up sooner. Months wasted.
But we got here using magic in the first place, I hissed, fighting through another leg cramp. Circle spells are different. They use power from the surrounding area and from materials used. If you know the right symbol and material combination, even a human can create a spell. We did not use any of my inner power then, only the power locked inside the worlds and the chalk. I was feeling a little better by the time I hobbled down half the hallway. It still felt awful, and I would very much rather not have this job anymore. Fex had some pretty awful friends. If I saw that little runt again, I'd give him a piece of my mind for dragging us along on this horrible ship, then kicking us off. I was miserable, wet, and in pain. Thankfully, Fex stayed silent on how grouchy I was. On a scale of 1 to 100%, how much power did you just use to knock me on my ass? Groaning in pain, I straightened my back out. Legs still sore, but my hands returning to normal. Fex was silent for a long time as I got the kinks out of the overloaded magic through my body. It is not even 8%, he said finally. My stomach fluttered. I wasn't even aware that Fex was this powerful. If not even a shadow of his strength could fry me, then he could overload my body thousands of times over. I'd assumed he was more of a bite and slash kind of creature with a small amount of magic. The amount of power he had hidden away was insane, and he was just one of very many creatures out there. What kind of world did I stumble into? Down the hallway, I saw a woman. I was still wet from the ocean and a bit stiff, but overall looked normal enough. She may look at me strangely, but that's all. I still wanted to avoid her, but she turned down the hallway and right towards me. I then noticed how silent the ship sounded. Even with most passengers in their rooms, I should be hearing faint music from the bars or the music from the overhead speakers. Nothing. I only heard her walking towards me. She looked a bit off, but Fex did not warn me of any danger. When she was about to turn right into me, I took a step away and out of her path. "Can I help you?" I asked in a tone I thought was kind. Without any hint of emotion, the stranger pulled a knife she had hidden at her side and stabbed me directly in the gut. That got Fex's attention, but he was still unable to switch over with me. The entire thing was so unreal I didn't react. She pulled the knife out and stabbed again. This time I grabbed her wrist to get the knife out of her grasp. Dying because of a stab wound or being kicked off the boat had a downside. I was alive to feel being stabbed again. The first wound healed over when I wrestled the knife free from her and stumbled back. It looked like a steak knife she had just picked up off of a restaurant table. It hurt. A lot. I've heard about people going into shock and not feeling the pain, but my body wasn't being so kind to me. I took off in a half jog, getting away from my attacker. Even for self-defense, I wasn't the type to hit someone. A very bad choice for my new line of work. I could easily knock her out with my increased strength, but I just couldn't hit a random middle-aged woman, even if she stabbed me first. Taking off down the hallway, I saw more people turning the corner, each with a makeshift weapon in their hands, from forks to knives to anything heavy that could hit me and do damage. Each had the same blank expression on their face. I turned, thinking one unarmed woman would be better than 5 who had appeared. Down the hallway, more people started to turn the corner, blocking me inside. I darted to an employee-only door and started to try to kick it open. The damn thing didn't even budge, as if it was just painted on. "Mason, you need to fight them," Fex told me in a stern voice he had never used before. "I can't. They're just human. What if Manifesto is controlling them? Just human or not, we can still die if they remove your head. You must fight them off.
Manifesto does not have the power to control humans in this way. I do not understand what is happening, but we need to live to figure it out. He was right. I still just couldn't get into a fight with a mob slowly forming on either end of the hallway. I'd used my sweet-talking skill for my entire life for a reason. I was never a fighter. I took this job because I wanted to protect people, but wasn't ready for what that meant. When someone came up to me with another steak knife, I knocked it out of their hand and pushed them aside. And then another person took a swing at me. It was not graceful or a good fight. I was doing my best to keep them away, but at the same time did not do too much damage. If I could just get through the emotionless crowd, I could hide and think of a real plan. I'm taking over. To my horror, Fex shoved me aside. It was so forceful I blacked out. Sinking into darkness as all feelings in my strained body went away. I floated in a dreamless sleep for a while until I felt myself being pulled back up and standing still in the red hallway. My breath caught as I looked down at my surroundings, at what Fex had done when he had taken over. The crowd of people who was so threatening before, all were in pieces, scattered around the hallway. I only saw red as my blood turned ice cold. I couldn't think. I couldn't move or do anything as fear and panic fused into one horrible cold emotion. Fex killed them using my body. He killed humans without any real cause. We were strong enough to just push them aside, but he had taken over me and did the one thing I feared the most. I clamped my hand over my ears, bile rising into my throat, trying to block everything out. I heard Fex calling for me, saying my name, trying to get my attention. The shock finally sank in, and I just didn't react to his words or anything for a long time.